All right, welcome to video 20. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the midterm paper, and also everything I say is going to apply forward to the final paper as well, but I will have a separate video reiterating that. Okay, so here's the basics. You're going to write a 1,000 to 1,500 word argument paper on a topic related to this class. So the first thing I want to emphasize is this is fundamentally an argument paper. Sometimes these get called opinion papers by people but I don't like that at all, because it's not just enough to have an opinion. You need to have reasons for your opinion. So, an argument paper. You're going to take a stand on an issue and defend it. You will be graded on the quality of the arguments that you give and not the stance you take. Good papers typically will have arguments with easily identifiable premises and conclusions. If the reader can summarize your essay with an argument written in standard form, you're on the right track. So one thing to note is that an argument paper is not a research paper. So additional research is not necessary. You just need to be reflecting on the material that we've already read. However, if you want to bring in outside information, you can. If you do use additional readings, you will be assessed on how well they support the overall conclusion. So I'm not judging the quality of your research, I'm judging whether it's relevant to your conclusion. And finally, I know that teachers everywhere get really uptight about citation style. And will dock you points if you use the wrong style or whatever, but I'm not particular about that. As long as your style is clear and consistent. The purpose of a citation is to indicate where you got your ideas or your facts to the reader. So that just needs to be clear and consistent. The reader needs a way to find your source. So I like to have the author, the place of publication, and it's the 21st century. A link is really all you need. Okay. Personal experience. I actually encourage you to talk about your personal experiences if you feel comfortable doing so. I don't want this to be an abstract exercise. I want this to tie to your life. This is a medical ethics course, and everyone at some point winds up in the medical system. And you have experiences with all kinds of issues that we're talking about, including justice issues. So personal reflections improve your grade when they are relevant to the issue you're discussing or support your conclusion. Right? I'm not actually going to grade your personal experience. I'm interested in what you draw from that and how you relate it to the larger theme or thesis that you are addressing. And finally, please feel free to say I. For some stupid reason, teachers, especially in high school, want you to avoid the first person pronoun. I think because they want to sound like the voice of you to sound like the voice of authority, but that kind of anonymous voice of authority is it's essentially a lie. You're trying to pretend like your judgments aren't coming from your own point of view and give them the illusion of objectivity. But, I'm a philosopher. I study the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. And I know that you can't attain objectivity by simply pretending subjectivity doesn't exist. All right. So I've got 3 suggested topics in the paper handout. I'm going to run through them here as well. You are not required to write on these topics, but if you write on a different topic, I encourage you to run it by me first, just to be sure you're not running completely off the rails. Okay, so number 1, structural injustice in Henrietta Lacks. So we've done a couple of readings about structural injustice, and the question is, do the stories that Rebecca Skloot tells in her book illustrate the concept of structural injustice. So to write on this topic, you're going to need to first explain what structural injustice is. And I recommend that you draw on both Young and Haslinger to it. Putting together some understanding of structural injustice that uses Young's idea of what a social structure is and also Haslinger's idea of how a social structure can be explanatory. So you can look at a single event in this book, or you can look for a larger pattern. For instance, the overall interaction between the Lax family and Johns Hopkins, or the relationship between Rebecca Skloot and Deborah Lax. Or you could look at an individual instance like the crazy miscommunications that happen once the Lax family becomes aware of the existence of Gila. In any case, the core of your paper is going to be an argument for or against the claim that the part of the story you are looking at is best explained in terms of structural injustice. All right. Race and medicine. So the basic topic here is what accounts for the discrepancies in medical treatment between Africans and European Americans and what can be done to change it. So you can begin by identifying some examples of racism in medicine, either today or in Henrietta Lax's time. And we've got readings about both. We talk about pain treatment, racism in pain treatment. We've also are going to be talking about pregnancy outcomes and racial disparities there. So the next topic is, why is this happening and what can be done about it? So is the problem really about race, or is it economic inequality or economic injustice in general? So if you're interested, I can hook you up with some more resources, or you can talk with one of the helpful and friendly librarians at the Bass Library. You may also need to take a look again at the reading by Iris Marion Young on structural injustice. So the third suggested paper topic is applying the Belmont principles. How do different examples of human experimentation live up to or fall short of the Belmont principles for ethical research? So for this paper, you should pick one or two examples of human experimentation, either from the book or from elsewhere, and analyze them using the Belmont principles. So you can talk about the Tuskegee syphilis study or Chester Southam's cancer studies, or you can talk about things that you've read elsewhere. For this paper topic, the important arguments will be whether the studies live up to the question, studies in question live up to the principles or not. If you use multiple studies, you might find it helpful to contrast them, to use studies that contrast each other in various ways. All right, so those are the three suggested paper topics. There are actually so many other things you could write about. You can write about medical communication. You can, if you want to write about something else, run it by me. When it comes to the second paper, one of your options is going to be to expand this paper. So you might want to have that in mind as you write. So for the second paper, you're going to need to write 1,000 more words, but they could be 1,000 more words on this topic or another topic.